Metric Motorcycle Madness presents.
So yeah, I was able to just pull that plug right out with no effort whatsoever at all. And I think it was sealed in there at one point. However, that sealant or whatever they used is just melted and burned out completely because I was able to just pull that out of there. So that is definitely one leak point. And it's just coming in right next to the exhaust, getting in there and burning off. But that's not where the main leak came from, really. It's somewhere from around here. And I don't believe there's an oil port over there, so I don't know if it's the gasket that's leaking or what. But this is usually the first culprit of a top-end oil leak is this right here. And especially if you notice if it's burning off. So that's definitely going to need to be replaced. I think I put in the description here as well, but also I need to remind you, before you perform this step, of course, you want to have the engine at TDC, which is top dead center. Down there, we remove that cap with a huge, either flat-bladed screwdriver, or you can use a crowbar end with the chisel end, as long as you don't scuff it up. And can't remember if it's clockwise or counterclockwise. It says that in the manual, and then of course, get it so you have play in all the valves and rockers there. So your next step is going to be to remove the side cover. And we didn't do that before we pulled it out of the bike because we wanted to make sure it was protected and in the inside, and we didn't hit anything on the frame as we removed it. Filter cover first, then the cover like we did when we did the cam chain adjuster. Pull that off and then remove the cam chain adjuster. Keep in mind when you remove this to have a drain pan down, because you're going to lose a bit of oil out of the cover, of course, when you remove it, because there's a bunch that sits in the oil filter well that doesn't come out when you drain it from the oil drain plug at the bottom of the engine. We have 3 hex bolts that are, oh Christ, I don't know. Looks like maybe a 5mm. And then I think these are maybe 6mm heads on these. So we removed the oil filter cover. We removed all the bolts to the side cover. These are actually 8mm. Then we removed the cam chain tensioner. Here we removed the little circlip. It sits down in there in the modified cam chain tensioner. That was then the 10mm bolt. Make sure not to lose the mainspring underneath the stopper. There's a little tiny spring in there. Make sure not to lose that. And there's also a washer that sits on the 10mm bolt. And it's a circlip and the modified tensioner. So now we are ready to do the rest of the part up top and start getting the now that we've loosened some of the slack on this, to start getting the camshaft out. Next thing you want to do after you've removed the cam chain tensioner, up here there's 2 10mm bolts, one on this side of the camshaft sprocket and one on the other. There's this little tappet plate here that it's crimped, so you can't turn the bolt. So you need to get in there with right here with a little flathead screwdriver, and just with a hammer tap it in between the groove till you get to a certain point, and then take a slightly larger one and just bend that tab out. Then you're going to remove the first one, go over to the engine side of the alternator cover, and then rotate the engine. According to the manual, it says clockwise from the left-hand side, and then remove the other one.
I read somewhere on a forum that it was counterclockwise and the climber manual was wrong. Same way when you're supposed to get the top dead center. Do what you think is best. It's kind of rough going clockwise, I noticed, from what the climber manual says. So once you're going to do that, remove that, and then get a piece of just, electrical wire or something, and after that, this sprocket's going to come loose, and we'll actually be able to remove the cam chain here, and just set it off to the side so we can work the cam out of the journals. Be very careful when you remove that little plate, that crimp plate, tappet plate, whatever, that it doesn't fall down inside that groove, and then you have to try to take the whole head off and fish it out, because that would not be fun. So this just slides off towards you, and then you're able to pull the chain up off of that, and then basically just lift up on the camshaft and wiggle that out. Probably this direction. Probably be the easiest way to take it out, but you can see it's just about loose here, so able to just come right out. All I've done is just rotated the camshaft to wiggle this chain off of the camshaft sprocket, and it sits in 2 grooves. Not sure if you can really see here, but there's a pin right there. It sits in 2 grooves, and you're gonna have to kind of wiggle it out, but make sure to get a piece of it's best to hang it from overhead, but make sure to get a piece of wire and put that through the chain so it's not going to fall down once you pull that out. And I've just hooked it right here, right onto this hook from the clutch cable when it comes down. And then should be able to just wiggle this out easy, like that. There you go. Now when you lift this up and out, be very careful, because underneath in one of these journals is this lock ring, and you don't want to lose that. So let me check the sprocket. Sprocket looks good for wear, and camshaft looks to be in good shape. Set that back in. Inspect the journals for any kind of excessive wear. Looks like the middle one here has a little bit of scuffing. So when we put this back in, we're going to have to make sure to put a special kind of grease that you're supposed to use for these. Now this oil well that's sitting right in here is a bunch of old oil that doesn't ever leave here. So just grab some paper towels, shove that in there for about 2 minutes, and just let it soak right up. You're also able, you can see all the way to the bottom now. All the way into there. Another thing I forgot to mention, not to lose in addition, that pin right there that sits in the recess, that pin can actually fall out, so just be careful that you don't lose that as well.